Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this episode of Flipping the R's. Today, we're exploring the power of employee advocacy, turning your workforce into brand ambassadors. In a world where people trust leaders and institutions less than ever before, the authentic voices of everyday employees has become one of the most credible and influential channels a company can have. Whether it's through social media, customer interactions, or internal storytelling, employees are the human face of the organization, shaping how the world perceives your brand every single day. I'm thrilled to be joined by two remarkable guests who bring depth and perspective to this conversation. First, Debbie Kemp, Chief People Officer at Biz2Credit, a company that is building the next generation of business lending solutions. Debbie has been incredibly influential in my own career. She was actually the leader who first got me excited about the potential of HR and how people strategy can drive brand and culture. And Dr. Sandra Lachlan, Chief Learning Scientist at EPAM Systems, a leading provider of digital engineering and consulting services. Sandra helps organizations connect learning, leadership, and purpose to unlock advocacy and change at scale. Together, we'll look at how to build a culture that inspires advocacy, aligns it authentically with company values, and leverages technology to help employees share their voices with confidence, especially in an era where those voices carry more trust than any corporate statement or CEO message. Before we dive into all that, let's start with something fun. When you want to completely unplug and recharge, what's your go-to escape or guilty pleasure? Debbie, I'll put you on the spot first.
No problem. There's two. One is I'll dive into a book because I can definitely disconnect from the world and just create my own world within this book that I'm reading. And then I think the other is I go for long walks. I'll just go out for hours along the water just to, again, unplug.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Debbie. Sandra, how about you?
Yeah, the first one is definitely a book. Ideally, not a hard one, something like mentally popcorny so that I don't have to think that hard. And the other one, which is kind of a more recent discovery, is Thai massage, where I'll go and they beat you up, but you come out of it and you feel like light and free, and you can't see your phone or anything that whole time. So it's an awesome little break from reality.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. And I'm actually going to get my first Thai massage in a few weeks, and I'm so excited. So I love to hear that. For me, I live in Maine and pretty close to the ocean. So for me, it's getting out, getting close to the coast, and just kind of breathing in some of that cool salt air. Great. Well, it's really interesting to know those things about you. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into our first segment? So with that, the first segment is about building a culture of advocacy. And I think, Sandra, I'll start with my first question for you. From a learning and culture perspective, what's at the foundation of organizations that successfully foster employee advocacy?
I mean, this is probably not like a rocket science answer, but companies have to want their employees to love what they do every day. And that means it's incredibly important that organizations understand the work that drives the business. They understand the skills of the people in the organization, and they're constantly making an effort to match people to the right work. If you can get people to be excited and successful in their jobs, they are more likely to want to tell everyone about their amazing organization and all of the ways that the company helps them feel successful. And it's a very simple thing to describe. It's a lot more complex to do, but I think that is utterly the foundation of advocacy.
That's really interesting. Have you seen this play out differently across industries or regions, or is this kind of like a ubiquitous thing across any type of company or geography?
I mean, I think it's ubiquitous, and I think that when we talk about advocacy, you can't make people do, like, to be authentic, they have to want to do it. They need to be very satisfied in their roles, and what we know is that there are two reasons, big reasons, that people like either stay at companies or leave companies. The first one's compensation, which you can't do that much about, but the second one is the perception that employees have that their business cares about them and is investing in their growth as an individual. And so the way that the companies do this effectively is not throw training at people. It's actually, again, understanding the work, understanding the people, and making a constant effort to align those two things through the effective learning programs, internal mobility, hiring the right people, skills-based performance management. This is actually what gives people a sense of effectiveness and engagement in their work. And I think that is just a universal human desire.
Yeah. Terrific. Thank you. So Debbie, just how do you see the role of leadership, especially being in like your CPO role, in not only supporting, but sparking that culture of advocacy across a workforce?
I think it starts at the top.
Yeah.
I mean, when leaders show authenticity, and connect to the companies, whether it's the mission or the values, in a personal meaning, and I think that really connects with even they care, right? They show they care. Then employees feel they have permission to do the same thing. It's less about giving scripts, right? And really more about the meaning behind the behavior. Mm-hmm. And so I think, you want to celebrate, it's not just celebrating the wins, but it's really celebrating the advocacy and they feel, again, I just want to reiterate what Sandra said. If we care from a company perspective and the leadership cares, employees will feel cared for.
Okay, terrific. Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So thinking about that, right? Do either of you or do both of you, do you have like a kind of like one real world example where you saw advocacy come to life in a meaningful way and, that you think would be valuable for our listeners to hear?
I mean, yeah, I'm happy to share a couple. The first one, and I'm going to speak for myself here. The first one that comes to mind for me was with my own organization. And it was, when the war in Ukraine happened, EPAM, which is about 60,000 people, about 60% of our entire global workforce was either in Russia or Belarus or Ukraine. And so I cannot explain how fundamentally disruptive is not even the right word, existential it was to our business. And there's a lot that goes into this, but basically the executive team, unlike many other companies, decided not to just run away and leave all the people in Ukraine to fend for themselves. We doubled down on supporting our people and getting our employees and their grandparents and their dogs out of the country into safer locations. And there's just so much that happened, but I've never been more proud in my life to be associated with the company than I was at that moment to watch how we responded to an absolute crisis. And it wasn't just me. If you go back, you would see on LinkedIn publicly, so many EPAMers were just publicly saying how proud they were of the organization. And I think that really speaks to what Debbie said, right? The idea that your leadership is showing alignment to your values. Those values are aligned to what employees are excited about. And doing good for the world is one of those very powerful things. Another example, again, with my own organization right now, it goes back to the idea of having great data on people and using that data to improve the employee experience, right? So we are incredibly good at collecting validated, good quality data on what people are good at, but not just that, what they're excited about, what their goals are, right? And using all of that information to help them find work that is engaging to them. And I talk about that a lot publicly, but so many other EPAMers do too. And it's something that they're proud of the company for doing, and they benefit from it personally. And I think, again, like, you have to meet people where they are. And if you can do that, they will naturally be advocates for the brand.
That's really good. Debbie, anything to add?
No, I think those were amazing. I really, I can add in other ways, but these are really great examples.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. I really appreciate the inputs that you have and the insights. I think it's love doing these sessions with individuals like you, because I always take so much away from these. With that, let's kind of move to the next section, which is about aligning employee advocacy with company values, right? And Debbie, I'll start with you. How do you ensure that employee advocacy stays authentic and aligned with company values without sounding overly scripted or corporate?
Yeah, I think the key is balance. Give employees the context, kind of the brand guidelines or guardrails, but let them use their own voice. And I think to your point, we don't. When we do a corporate, when I think about a press release on a LinkedIn profile, it's got to matter, right, to the employee. Those are great. There's a time and a place for that. But I think, we really want different perspectives. And that's really, I think, when advocacy feels real. And so, we have just, as a quick example, we have our employees get involved in some of our, again, whether it's internal or external posts or communications, because we want them to put through their self, right? If there's something we believe in or they believe in, we want them to use their voice.
Okay. Got it. Sometimes I see organizations, right, like they have an employee kind of do something like that. And then, say the employee leaves the organization, they then kind of remove that content. I always wonder about that. Like, what's the intent up behind that? And this is, is it important just to keep people that are internal to the organization talking about it? Or can we use kind of like in this age of mobility across organizations, can we use, continue to use the voice of past ambassadors employees to still be like an ongoing voice of an ambassador for us?
Yeah, we don't take anything down. So I think I can't imagine that there would be a lot of, not that it's just a lot of work, but I'm like, no, they had a voice. They still have a voice. Yeah. And many times they will go back. And again, I'll just use LinkedIn as an example, but oftentimes they'll go back and again, share some of the content that we've got or some of the, things that are going on with their network, which therefore they're still that brand ambassador, even though they may not be employed by us.
Yeah. Interesting. Sandra, kind of building upon that, how can culture and learning programs help employees kind of naturally communicate in ways that reflect an organization's purpose? Like, and maybe you've seen this at EPAM or with other organizations you've worked with.
I don't know if it's a learning program per se, but one thing that I really have seen very successfully done, and I guess, again, to like underscore Debbie's point, like we really want it to be authentic. And so you don't want to over scribe or whatever. Like you want to kind of give people a direction and say, hey, we're really trying to be communicate about this message this quarter. Like as you see things in your day to day, like could you just kind of contribute on that theme without a lot of external or additional guidance other than like brand guidance and like what not to say, right? The obvious stuff. There are opportunities to provide learning programs around here are some good examples, here are some bad examples, here's why they're good and bad, right? But I think, giving people direction and guardrails is often sufficient. If you want to build that into culture, it requires going beyond the education, right? And making it worth people's while, right? So people will do this often just because if it's not that hard, if they're already on LinkedIn a lot, for example, or if are already in front of a client, like they can just do that very naturally. But if you want people to go above and beyond, there needs to be something in it for them, right? It could be a thank you note from the CEO or the executive team. It could be a badge in your internal recognition system. There's a lot of different ways that you can help people feel acknowledged. But I think what's very cool about external advocacy, if it's done right, is that employees are intrinsically motivated to do it because it helps build their own personal brand. Right? Like if you can find that win-win where you have employees who are talking enthusiastically about your product or your service or your culture, right? They can become thought leaders in their own right. And then you're not only getting more visibility and people, like, as you said, like to look at other people, not, corporate communications. But it also like is an incentive structure for them to keep doing it and do it better and more regularly. So I think that the best, most successful companies get to this point of having employee advocates because they don't overscribe, they do provide direction and guardrails, and they find a way to build a flywheel out of it where everyone benefits.
Yeah, just coming back, Sandra, I just love like the what's in it for me. Oh, Debbie, you have something to say?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think, throughout my career, I've worked for organizations that I felt are very good at communicating and allowing the employee voice. And I've worked for some that aren't, or actually are afraid of the employee voice. And I didn't stay too long at those organizations because there was something really fundamentally wrong with the culture, in my opinion. But like a lot of times, I feel like the message starts at the top. It's all well and good. Then, though, there isn't really down to the individual level the what's in it for me, right? So it could be we want to go in this direction, but it's not really communicated. So people continue to do the same behaviors they've done previously. Have either of you kind of experienced that or had kind of seen ways that and maybe this is leaders can, like, instead of just putting out messaging, have really brought it to the what's in it for me for going back to my Navy days, down to the deck plates, to the lowest kind of level within the organization.
I've been at several organizations, but I think I'll just focus on here. And I think it really has been about, we're working with the managers a little bit, right? So not just expecting it at the very top, but just kind of one level up from our what I call our individual contributors, right? And it's getting them engaged and kind of permissioning them in a way as well, right? To in their roles. And I think a lot of that then enables our employees to express their perspectives, and then again feel good about those perspectives. We're not. I think one thing we don't do is dampen it. It's really encouraging it to surface. I think it's just we feel better. Our employees, our team feels better. They're engaged. They're really excited about. Again, about brand, kind of building whether it's in their brand, right, in a lot of ways, and their voice in what we do. And again, here we're funding small businesses. And so it really does matter. They matter. And the more that they understand that and they can express it in their terms, right, how they feel about it, it just builds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say, again, I'll speak for myself. Like when I make a post on LinkedIn, and I see that our CEO has like liked it or even responded to it. Like there's very few things that are more exciting than being seen, right, in a 65,000 person company, right, being seen by the executive team. And so, that is one of those, like, what's in it for me? It's that internal, like, I felt seen, and I really was seen too. So it was literal too. But I think I think people often underappreciate the power of small things like that, or on a quarterly call with the whole organization, the executive team says, here are the top advocates, or the top advocacy moments that we saw, right? It's not hard to do. It costs nothing. But what it does is it drives these, it creates, again, that motivation, the what's in it for me, to feel special and appreciated. And in a big company is a gift. And so that's a very, very simple way for organizations to kind of motivate people and support them in being advocates.
Great. Thanks to both of you. That's really helpful. And I into the next section about technologies and tools to enable advocacy. Debbie, you mentioned about working with managers, and I've worked with a lot of organizations that are like, please don't ask me to ask middle management to do one more thing, right? Or they're just going to, jump off the cliff, right? Because we ask them a lot. So, what I'm starting to see or starting to think through is not how to give them more work, but how to make their lives easier through technology and tools, because it is a really hard role, right? Being a middle manager, kind of between leadership and between the individual contributor. But with that in mind, kind of just maybe carrying it into this next section, Sandra, when you think about learning or behavioral science behind getting employees to actually engage with advocacy, do you see technology helping them with that, or in a way that technology can help them with that?
I mean, yes. So much of advocacy is done through technology, through social media in particular. There's obviously, you would do that in front of clients as well. And there's a way that you can even frame your client conversations from a deck, perspective to be an advocate. But yes, I think the medium of advocacy is often technology. But you can use technology as well to help people identify ways that they can be advocates. So they don't have any ideas, but they want to contribute. There's a way to do this. So for example, what I would love to see more companies doing is just periodically asking employees in your global tools of what was the thing that you experienced in the company in the past month that just made you feel proud to be part of the organization, or that you admire, something, right? And then being able to surface all of those, you can then have that sent back out to the organization and say, here's the proud moments that people have, and that will just inspire me to be I could talk about that, and then I go on and talk about it on LinkedIn for a hot second, right? There are ways to do this, and I think it's, again, if you have employees who are happy, they are probably inclined to do this because they are happy. They just might need that extra push of here's something to talk about. Here's some ways to do that without writing it for them, but giving them inspiration is not expensive, not hard, and has huge benefits.
Yeah. Terrific. Debbie, in your role as a CPO, right, and also kind of working a lot with brand perspectives, what technologies have you seen or are you using to really drive employees to share their messages easly and I would say safely too, right? But is it safe out there? I don't know. But how, are there things that you're using at your organization or that you've used in the past that really have, from a technology perspective, that have helped employees?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I'd say currently we're big Teams, channel. company, I've used Slack. We've really been, again, this is focused on internal. We've also worked with companies that we were big Slack channel users, and we create and really set up some of these channels to enable the advocacy. Really, it really enables employees to, feel like they can be themselves, just be themselves, or chat. I'll just say chat, right? Kind of bring out who they are. We do a lot, that as it relates to kind of what's interested on the, what was your experience, right? And kind of getting that. We do a lot even externally. We take Trustpilot very seriously with our customer feedback. And oftentimes when our case managers or an underwriter or somebody has been recognized in one of these feedbacks, which is quite a bit, but we then acknowledge it internally. We have, our floor looks almost like a trading floor, and we have 8 screens across, and we run different, different postings or whatever on that. And so we will acknowledge that. And then we also talk about it, and we do other, that's just one example. But I think part of it is it really kind of builds employees wanting to be here because they do see, right, their little name up in lights, right, in a fun post. And I'd say we spend time thinking about how to acknowledge so that employees feel seen. And that's internal. And then again, if something comes in external, we'll do not just Trustpilot, but if something else, a post on LinkedIn, we make sure that we're seeing it again inside. So just because I didn't have time to get up on LinkedIn, right, and kind of see what's going on, we scroll through those things as well. So again, it enables everybody, right, to see what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. I know, like, advocacy, a lot of people, like, intrinsically we know it's good. Intrinsically we know it's also good to recognize our people and do all of that. I think where sometimes, though, right, we're in commercial organizations or even in other organizations, it comes down to what are the metrics, what are we doing, is it having impact, right? Is it, is what we're doing, can we validate it beyond just a gut feeling? I don't know if at your organizations or in past organizations, if you've been kind of monitoring or watching metrics or signals around employee advocacy. Have either of you seen that or have any ideas on how that could be measured?
Well, probably, but it's not going to be measured as well as we could like to, because there's so much I think happens in dark social, right? Like, which is where it's the back end sharing. It's like, and you just can't track that. And so what I know that we have done is track the people that are more prolific and talking more. Like, we just kind of, because our marketing team will stay up on that and pay attention, particularly on LinkedIn, right? But I don't think that we have any sort of like deep data on this because it's expensive to collect deep data, and we're not expending a lot of money on the advocacy. And so I don't know that there's a real ROI calculation that's required, but we track it just so that we can acknowledge and again, like, really push that flywheel up.
Yeah. Okay.
I would agree. I don't think we're not tracking it deeply, but we do know which employees are getting, a lot of pickup, right? We do understand that. And we also know that when we engage those employees, they do continue to grow that, that trust, or, it does drive traffic. I mean, it definitely drives traffic, which, all of us in our organizations would like to see that traffic, driven, kind of the SEO traffic, right?
Yeah. And maybe this is a good segue into our fourth and final segment, right? Is like, and again, the impact of employee advocacy on brand trust and customer loyalty, right? So we've kind of already, I think, started to dip our toe into this through our conversations already. But Debbie, have you seen employee advocacy directly influence kind of brand trust and customer engagement in measurable ways?
Definitely. We do see the uptick. There's no doubt. And sometimes, we then engage those employees to do more. And it's great for them. It's great for us. But yeah, we definitely see that it builds credibility. And, sometimes people are, quick to go the other direction, not, kind of complain, right? There's those channels too. But I'd say we act because they're unhappy, but I'd say we have, really engaged, overly, I'd just say, they are, they feel good about being here. And therefore we love to see them, behind a camera or writing, and talking about their experiences or talking about something, that's going on. And because I think also they're very genuine in their speak, that it builds that credibility and it encourages others to say, oh, hey, I'd like, can I do something like this or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Sandra, like building upon that, right? Also there's, what's the connection, or have you seen a connection between kind of engaged internal culture and external brand loyalty? And, is there a way to make that visible to leadership? Well, I'll just leave it at that.
Can you ask that?
Yeah. So what's the connection between an engaged internal culture, right? Or an engaged workforce, let's say that, and external brand loyalty from kind of customers, and how, are you able to make that visible to the leadership of an organization? So again, that leadership, you can get leadership more invested in creating that engaged workforce.
Yes. And I mean, absolutely. And it will, I guess, to some degree differ by industry. So we're professional services, right?
Yeah.
Like our entire business is staffing incredible people that are perfectly matched to client projects, right? Which means that it is incumbent on us as a business to be the place where the best people want to work and come and stay. And if they leave, come back, right? And so when these are all indirect measures, but when we are reporting things like our retention, our tenure, like our client CSAT scores, right? These employee engagement scores, these are all indicative of the outcome of having an engaged workforce. They stay longer, they are happier, they are more productive, they're more engaged with clients, right? These are all, for our business, like the driver of our business success. But variants of that are true in every industry, right? If you have a very customer service heavy organization, they're the face of the organization, right? And so the more engaged they are, the fewer complaints you're going to have. Like it's this flywheel concept. And so because it's a little bit not fluffier, it's just harder to measure that direct connection. All of the metrics are going to need to be understood as directional. You can't perfectly measure engagements and its direct connection to business outcomes. You can just say, we have this high engagement. Here are some of the things that are associated with it. We are pretty confident that it's explaining some of the variance in our profit margins for, this year.
Yeah, I find it's interesting. A lot of people want to see direct causation, or I get a lot of questions around that. And as I think about kind of over my career and just working with a lot of different organizations, I don't think I've seen anything that's like a direct causation. I think everything is a correlation in some way, right? Because I've never been in a situation where you can, it's such a controlled experiment in a live business environment where you can, narrow it down to one or even two things, right? It's just that some things, since they're financial or they're, or there is some more hard metric that can be tied to it, people tend to think that's more causation.
Not at all. Like I used to be a researcher, so don't take me down this route. I could talk for days about this. But basically, any business outcome is the end result of many variables. Many.
Yeah.
Some of these variables you can control, some of them you can't. Some are systematic and some are not. Like there's just no way. And so I am always talking to executives about this issue. Let's not attempt to measure the impact of this intervention on this huge outcome, because even if it were true, you might not necessarily see it. So yes, I want to just say that. Like I think it's such an important thing that most business leaders don't understand.
Yeah,
I agree. It's insightful.
Yeah.
But whatever it is you're looking at that point, but it isn't. It just isn't the stick. It's just not that one item. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. It'd be. I mean, what a world it would be in some ways, right? If we could make it that simple, right? Part of me wishes for that, but then the other part of me is like, that'd be pretty boring too, right? The dynamicism of being a human and working with other humans in unpredictable situations. It can be harrowing, but it can also be super exciting, right? And I tend to be a glass half full and think of it as super exciting, right?
I lots of opportunity out there, right? There's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think I'll end that segment there, and maybe just kind of as a closing thoughts and kind of maybe some rapid fire takeaways. I'll ask kind of a closing thought, to both of you. Like, what's one actionable step that organizations can take this week? Maybe that's too short, but let's say in the next month, to strengthen employee advocacy?
I would say, think about what it is that you want your business to be known for. That employees would feel and experience and can speak to, and create a calendar by quarter or whatever, where or for the year, and just give people like a list of options, and then just say, hey, we would be thrilled if you would just speak to this issue to our clients, out to the world, and just put it out there with some degree of directionality, but not prescription.
I like that idea. I think, taking that even a step further, again, kind of a step further is kind of providing them a little bit of guideline on it. And I think of like, whether it's we've got our DNA versus our values. And I think, part of that is giving them something. One thing that we've done in the past is share one of those words, and again, in a different organization, and have, so this is an easy one. Have employees do a 30-second clip. They can, take that, video of themselves on what that word means to them, and then we put that together on a month, on a monthly basis. You get, or whatever, right? And you can then again, it's I don't know, it's really putting it out there because it's their voice, and enables them to then bring, again, others into that, get some thinking about, oh yeah, I really do like that value. I really like that DNA, and that really is how it works here. They start to personalize it. And I think it was something that worked for me previously. And it just, as I was listening to Sandra, I'm like, maybe, it would really work here too. I think it's an easy takeaway to get employees involved.
Okay, great. All right, next. How do each of you see employee advocacy evolving over the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months? Especially in now that we're seeing such rapid evolution of technology with the introduction of AI.
I think it's just more. I think there's more opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't, I think, again, speaking for our organization here, as the opportunity is, really pulling in, you want to say the culture carriers, right? Or some individuals, giving them the opportunity. And I don't think, again, I don't know that AI is going to take away that. I think if anything, they're going to feel more comfortable. And really speaking to it. I mean, we're using AI or, kind of automation in how we streamline a lot of our work, but it isn't changing the importance of our employees and their voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I don't know that it fundamentally changes anything. However, I do wonder if, especially as AI is coming in and impacting the workforce, and we're already starting to see some of those like scary stories coming out, right? I think as a society, we're going to value more and more companies that value people. And I think, the more you have advocates out there saying, here's how my company has supported me, my job was changing, but I got all of these resources. I'm now doing this thing. Like, I think the more employees are advocating on behalf of the organization as it relates to their own AI journey, I think the better the organization will be, the more likely you are to attract and retain employees, the more likely you are to have investors in the street looking positively at your strategy. And again, there's just nothing like authentic from within voices to provide that kind of comfort for the outside world.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, one thought or that I think is I'm seeing kind of directionally just with AI on a positive note. And again, it's just a tool, right? It is not good or bad, and it can be used for any different things. But I see a good way that AI can really help is actually create more opportunities for recognition of employees by making it easier, making it more visible, like kind of even looking at some of our communication tools, which then can drive up employee advocacy, right? The more people, again, I think, Sandra, you said it, like that they feel that they belong, that they're doing, work that's valued, and that the organization is helping support their growth, will ultimately continue to drive more employee advocacy. So those that are doing those things are going to see an increase in kind of advocacy from their workforce.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that?
No, I think you got it.
Okay. All right. Then here, this is really the final, right? So in one word, how would you describe the future of employee advocacy? And let me say, you can go with more than one word, but let's not do a paragraph.
I would say it's exciting. I think sky's the limit. There's a lot of opportunity.
Okay.
I would say it is the next frontier of external relations, and a very, very valuable one that has high benefits and low costs.
All right. Great. Well, again, I just want to thank the two of you. I really enjoyed our time together. It's great to get Debbie to see you again, Sandra to get to meet and talk to you more. And I hope we continue to have more opportunities to share ideas and to just connect as humans. It's a wonderful thing to do.
Right. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.